I never expected to confront a billionaire at dinner, until he turned out to be my blind date. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The moment I stepped into that crowded restaurant, my heart raced. The air thick with tension, laughter buzzing like fireflies. Tablecloths crisp and white, silverware glinting under the soft light. Yet, an unease prickled my skin. Had he always been this close to me? I wasn't just looking for a date. I was searching for hope, an escape from the mundane. I glanced around, searching for a familiar face, a glimmer of reassurance. Then, everything paused. My breath hitched. There he was, James Harrington, the billionaire. The man whose name had echoed through whispered conversations, a ghost of fortune and power. He leaned casually against the bar, a glass of something dark in his hand. The crowd parted, eyes drawn to him like moths to a flame. But his gaze found me first piercing, curious. My stomach twisted. How could this be happening? His aura was magnetic, yet I felt a chill. The way he smiled, confident and carefree, made the air feel electric. I could barely remember my own name. What was I supposed to say? My thoughts flew in chaos, matching the pounding rhythm of my heart. Just a blind date, I murmured to myself, shaking my head in disbelief. But a blind date with a billionaire? It felt like a twisted reality show. I fought to control the tremble in my hands as I approached him. Each step felt monumental, like walking on a tightrope high above a dark abyss. "Are you my date?" he asked, his voice low and rich, like dark chocolate melting on my tongue. There was kindness there, hidden beneath layers of mystery. I nodded, feeling the heat rush to my cheeks. "I hope it's not too late to turn back." He chuckled, but his eyes held a depth that sent a shiver down my spine. "I'm not going anywhere, believe me." The way he looked at me was both thrilling and terrifying. I felt exposed, as though he could peel back the layers of my soul with just a glance. The waiter arrived, interrupting my spiraling thoughts, but the tension lingered. Questions raced through my mind. Why was he here, in this ordinary restaurant? What did people like him want with someone like me? As the evening unfolded, laughter floated around us, yet I felt like an observer, separate from the world. Every clink of a glass, every burst of laughter felt like echoes of distant thunder, building an inevitable storm. My pulse quickened with each story he told. There was charisma in him, but shadows danced behind his smile. I noticed the way he glanced over my shoulder, his smile faltering slightly. "Excuse me," he said, rising abruptly. A shadow flickered across his face, vanishing just as quickly. I watched him walk away, confusion filling the space between us. What had just happened? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something dark and twisted. Would he return? What was he hiding? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The din of the restaurant buzzed around me, yet silence hung heavily in the air as I waited for James to return. My heart pounded against my ribcage like a prisoner seeking escape. Questions whirled through my mind, each more frantic than the last. What could have pulled him away so abruptly? Moments felt like hours. The waiter, a burly man with sympathetic eyes, approached me again, offering a warm smile. "Would you like anything, miss? Perhaps some bread while you wait?" His kindness pierced through my anxiety, grounding me, if only for a moment. I offered him a faint smile, shaking my head in gratitude. Just as my nerves began to settle, I spotted James walking toward me. He looked different somehow. The carefree spark in his brown eyes was replaced by something darker, more guarded, like a wall he had hastily erected between us. "Sorry about that," he murmured, slipping into his seat. "It's fine," I replied softly, although concern gnawed at my insides. "Everything okay?" He nodded, but the smile wouldn't quite reach his eyes. He looked as if he were somewhere far away, wrestling with thoughts I couldn't comprehend. "Just business," he said eventually, waving a dismissive hand. But there was a gravity to his words that lingered in the arrow weight that felt unshakable. As I sought to fill the silence, I clumsily attempted to steer our conversation to lighter subjects. So, do you enjoy fine dining? I asked, desperate for normalcy. Only when I'm not paying, he quipped, flashing a genuine smile that flickered into existence before the shadows returned. Somewhere beneath that armor of wealth and confidence lay a tangled mess of unease. It fascinated me, leaving me yearning to know what dark currents lay beneath his surface. He leaned back in his chair, the tension of the evening weighing down on him like an anchor. You have to understand, he said, his voice suddenly serious. Being me isn't what it seems. People want things they want to take. It can get overwhelming. It amazed me how vulnerability rushed forth in that moment. And I was caught off guard was human, after all. Still, I could hear the distant roar of laughter, couples whispering sweet nothings to one another, the cheerfulness of life seeming to mock our quiet turmoil. What do you really want, then? There was a long pause before he answered, his brows slightly furrowing. To be seen, maybe? The confession hung between us, echoing like a whisper through the clamor of the restaurant. Sometimes I wish I could walk away from all of this and just live. His words struck a chord, resonating deep within me. I recognized the hunger in his voice, the longing for something more than the glamming, heartless world that surrounded him. But just as suddenly as this moment of connection blossomed, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Enough about me. What about you? I opened my mouth, prepared to share my dreams, my struggles, yet the weight of my own vulnerabilities felt alarming in the contrast of his confession. The truth was, my life seemed extravagantly simple next to his. Barely scraping by, living day by day, each morning dimmed by the mundane. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted at the entrance. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. A well-dressed man stormed in with an angry set to his jaw. He scanned the room, and the moment his eyes landed on James, I felt the tension spike, palpable and dangerous. James! He bellowed, striding toward our table. The room hushed, every eye on him. Mine widened in confusion and dawning dread. You can't keep running from this. You owe me, and I won't let it go. Not this time. My heart raced. I could feel the undercurrent of anger brace the air between us. James' eyes darkened, shadows consuming the light. Ah, Andrew, he managed, his voice strained. But a wave of foreboding crashed over me as I realized that something profound and perilous was about to unfold. Instinctively, I took a step back, my chair scraping on the floor in a jarring reminder of how fragile everything was. Who was this man? What was James tied to? I felt the ground beneath me shift, threatening to give way as secrets hung heavy, ready to unravel the fragile threads of this evening. My breath caught in my throat, my pulse quickening as questions tumbled through my mind like a torrent. What had I gotten myself into? The tension seemed to swell until it threatened to choke the very air around us. I could see James' jaw tightening as he faced the man, Andrew, whose fierce presence was a stark contrast to the refined ambience of the restaurant. It felt like we had been thrust into a different world, one where the stakes were suddenly higher and the laughter of previous diners faded into a distant memory. Andrew, James said again, his voice low but strained. I could see the strife in his posture, the tension rippling through him. Not here. Not now. But Andrew stepped closer, brushing aside the protests. You think you can hide from me? From your responsibilities? Didn't I make it clear that this isn't finished? I looked between the two men, confusion mixing with dread. This was far beyond my comprehension. Responsibilities? Isolation? What had James gotten entangled in? As Andrew's words hung in the air, the waiter returned, oblivious to the storm between us. Can I get you both anything else? He asked, glancing nervously at Andrew. No, James snapped, then took a deep breath, forcing himself to regain some semblance of control. We're fine. The waiter nodded hesitantly and backed away, leaving me to linger in the tempest that had emerged at our table. My mind raced as I absorbed the impending conflict, each bracing question feeding my anxiety. James, I finally found my voice, feeling the way it trembled through my words. Who is he? James' eyes darted to mine, a flicker of something like regret crossing his features before he turned back to Andrew. This conversation isn't meant for her, he said, the plea for discretion beneath the surface barely audible. Oh, but I think she deserves to know what kind of man she's dining with. Andrew shot back, his voice sharp and accusatory. I felt as if I were about to drown in a flood of information, the enormity of Jameis' world pushing against the confines of what I thought I understood. What do you mean? James reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, a brief moment of warmth that sent both comfort and alarm cascading through me. "He'll explain, I promise," he said, his voice quiet yet fervent, trying to anchor my spiraling fear. But Andrew wasn't finished. "You can't keep running from your past, James. You owe me money, and there are consequences for turning your back on deals. You know that. Money? Deals?" The implications flooded over me, grappling with the reality that James was entangled in something illicit, something that could very well shatter the connection we were forging. "Enough." James' voice rose, a mix of anger and desperation. "I won't let you intimidate me. You don't know what you're doing." I could feel the clench of my stomach intensifying as I realized the ripple effect this confrontation could have on my life in our moments shared and unshared. What if James was hiding more than I could fathom? What if I was merely a pawn in an unfolding drama far larger than this dinner date? Andrew stepped closer, arrogance radiating from him like heat. "You think you can just walk away? Think again. I will find a way to collect." He turned sharply on his heel, striding away with an air of finality that felt like a storm's eye passing toward the horizon. That I watched him slip back into the hum of the restaurant, an unwelcome void left in his absence. The uncertainty settled over us, and for a heartbeat, the sounds of clinking cutlery and soft chatter returned, but they were now overshadowed by a heavy weight of fear and distrust. "James," my voice trembled as I searched his darkening gaze. There was something raw, almost broken, hidden beneath his stern facade. He was a world in turmoil, and I was woefully unprepared to navigate it. "I am sorry," he said sharply, the fight visibly draining from him. "I didn't want you to see that side of me. Not like this." "What side is that?" I pressed, trembling as my heart beat loudly in my chest. "The side that owes someone money, side that feels dangerous?" His expression shifted, as if caught between rage and vulnerability, a faint chasm opening between us. "You don't understand, either." Words were left unspoken between us, the weight of countless unaddressed truths stifling the air. There was so much I didn't know about him, but what I did know was unyielding. And then it happened in unexpected kindness from across the table. The waiter returned with a small plate, a single chocolate torte that felt out of place amidst the turbulence of the evening. "On the house," he said quietly, as if sensing our distress, "things have a way of working out." I pretended to smile, a poor imitation of what I felt tension wrapped around my heart like a vice. It was a glimmer of hope, wrapped intricately with the heartache of uncertainties that loomed ahead, but the moment didn't last. James' phone buzzed violently against the table, causing both of us to jump. He picked it up, and his face paled as he read the screen. "James." I wavered, sensing the shift in him. The look in his eyes was harrowing fear prickling the surface as he slid the phone into his pocket. "I need to go," he said, his voice a whisper of urgency. "Now. Go." My heart sank. What was happening? "He'll explain, it isn't safe." His voice trailed off as the gravity of his statement settled in. I felt the world tilt on its axis, a mixture of dread and the undeniable instinct to hold on to what we had just begun to build. "Wait. Please, talk to me." But he was already on his feet, anguish flaring in his eyes as he turned away, leaving me rooted to my chair, a thousand questions swirling in my mind. Would he come back? What peril awaited him outside these walls? As he disappeared through the door, the weight of uncertainty fell onto my shoulders once more, deeper and darker than ever before. And just as I thought I might unravel, a chilling realization struck me. Nothing was ever truly as it seemed. I was drawn into this, whether I believed it or not. James had shown me a glimpse of his world, and now the curtain had fully risen on a scene that would change everything. The restaurant lights continued to twinkle, but all I could see was the door through which James had just exited. A part of me felt numb, as if my very essence was disarming itself in the absence of his presence. I sat there surrounded by the clatter of fine china and murmurs of couples sharing intimate secrets, feeling utterly disconnected from it all. My thoughts raced, unspooling into wild possibilities interwoven with fear. What did all this even mean? After a few moments, I was jolted from my spiraling thoughts by the waiter, whose gentle demeanor was almost alarming against the chaotic backdrop of my mind. "Would you like me to get you anything else?" he asked, his voice soft, almost a whisper against the sharp edges of my anxiety that I shook my head, his concern evident in the way he lingered a moment longer than necessary. I fought to form coherent thoughts. "No, I just need a moment." "I understand," he said, before retreating, leaving me with an untouched tort that I couldn't find the strength to eat. My heart twisted painfully, rhythmically, pacing itself with the uncertainty that seemed to echo in the quiet corners of my mind. As I sat alone, I watched couples laughing, sharing secrets in hushed tones, unaware of the tempest unfolding beyond their bubble of romance. How could they be so carefree? The scent of excitement and love wafted through the air, yet my own heart felt heavy, anchored by a reality I could hardly grasp. Minutes melted into what felt like hours, and I found myself lost in the labyrinth of my thoughts. I picked up James's phone to text him, but my trembling fingers hovered over the screen. How do you reach out when the very ground beneath you shifts with every passing moment? The risk of sending a simple "Are you okay?" felt monumental. Suddenly, I was jolted out of my reverie. A figure loomed at the far end of the room, a shadow threading discreetly between tables. I squinted, straining to catch sight of the man edging toward me, and my heart dropped when I recognized Andrew's unmistakable silhouette. Instinct kicked in. I dropped James's phone like it was molten metal and turned my focus back to my plate, half expecting that if I simply pretended he didn't exist, he would vanish. "Enjoying dessert?" Andrew's voice cut through the haze, his tone dripping with mockery. I cursed my cowardice for not being able to meet his gaze. "Leave me alone," I muttered. "Sweetheart, you're the only one who seems to be in the dark here." His words held a cruel edge, making my skin crawl. James is a fool if he thinks he can outrun his obligations. And you? You are just another pawn in his pathetic slow burn of a life. I turned to shine a weak glare at him, barely managing to lift my chin. "You don't know me, maybe, but I know men like him. They talk themselves into believing they can change, that they can be something greater than what they are." He leaned closer, a player in a game of power and greed. The sharpness of his words pierced through the fragile layers of hope that had started to build within me. "You're wrong. You don't know anything about James." His lips curled into a sardonic smile, and I forced myself to look past his facade of confidence. "The truth isn't as beautiful as your delusions. You think he cared about you? You think he sees you?" I could feel the heat in my cheeks rise as tears threatened to spill. I was painfully aware of what all was at stake: the intimacy we'd woven together, the glimpses into his world that had made me feel alive in a way that had become so familiar. It was now addictive. "If you truly cared about him, you'd encourage him to cut all ties," Andrew continued, undeterred by my silence. "His life is a web of deceit and lies. Tell me, how long do you think that fairy tale lasts?" Anger coursed through me. I could not let him strip me of my own agency, my own beliefs in who James was, danger and all. "You've clearly mistaken me for someone who is easily swayed by your attempts to intimidate." Andrew stepped back, suddenly impressed by my defiance. "You're stronger than I thought," he conceded. "But strength alone won't save you. Keep this up, and you might end up in a far darker place than dinner with a dishonest man." Before I could reply, he casually glanced at his own phone, a look of satisfaction washing over him. "It seems your boyfriend is already out playing his dangerous games." My heart raced at his words. The combination of dread and foreboding washed over me, realizing that James was already enmeshed in the chaos I had only begun to unveil. What did Andrew know? What if James hadn't just left to protect me, but to protect himself? I stood up suddenly, my resolve hardening against the silence of my own self-doubt. "You don't scare me, Andrew. I'll take my chances." He raised an eyebrow, half amused. "Is that so? Well, I hope you realize that when the curtain falls, you might not like the ending." With that, he turned, fading back into the labyrinth of the restaurant as swiftly as he had appeared. My heart thudded in my chest, fear and determination intertwining like ivy around a trellis. I had to find James and understand the truth buried beneath the weight of these accusations. I looked around. The laughter of the diners faded into a dull hum. But from the other side of the room, I caught a glimpse of Rita, flash of color I identified amidst the sea of muted tones. My breath caught. James stood at the entrance, his silhouette framed by the soft glow of the restaurant lights. But it was the look on his face that sent a wave of uncertainty crashing over me. It was then I realized I knew less about what he had dragged into our lives than I had thought. And as he stepped further into the room, I sensed something ominous trailing behind him, something that would unravel everything we had begun to build, leaving in its wake a storm I wasn't sure either of us could survive. The noise of the restaurant faded to a hushed whisper as I stood, rooted to the spot. Jameis' eyes met mine, and the flicker of confusion crossing his features sent another jolt of anxiety racing through me. He looked disheveled, as if the weight of something unspeakable dragged him down, and my heart sank at the realization that whatever had taken him from me moments earlier was still lodged firmly in his chest. That I forced myself to cross the distance that felt like a chasm. Each step felt heavier, burdened by the gravity of what I needed to confront. When I reached him, I wanted to reach out, to envelop him in an embrace that would chase away the shadows lurking just beyond his handsome facade. Instead, words caught in my throat, twisting into a knot of fears and hopes. "Hey," I managed, my voice trembling as I tried to mask the tremor within. "Hey," he replied, the word barely escaping his lips, almost a whisper, lost amidst the lingering banter echoing around us. "What happened?" I barely managed to ask, and the crack in my voice betrayed the facade I attempted to hold for his sake. He started, his brow furrowing, and for the briefest moment, I saw a glimpse of vulnerability in the depths of his eyes. "I got caught up with some business." The word hung heavy between us, thickening the air and obscuring the truth that lay just beneath. "Business?" I echoed, an incredulous note creeping into my tone. "You left me to deal with Andrew alone for business?" Using my frustration as fuel, I stepped closer, closing the distance until the warmth of his body pressed against my own. "You know he was trying to manipulate me, James." I was trying to understand what was real and what was a game. James' expression shifted slightly, a flicker of regret shadowing his features. "I didn't realize you where I thought you would be okay, that you could handle him." "I can handle things, but not when you're not there." My voice quivered despite my resolve, and I felt my heart thud unevenly as I searched for clarity in his gaze. "Tell me what's really going on." He glanced away, a storm gathering behind his eyes that made my chest tighten. "There are things you don't know, things I can't explain right now. You need to trust me." "Trust? How can I trust you when it feels like you're keeping secrets from me? Do you even care what Andrew said?" "Of course I care. It's just complicated." "Complicated?" I couldn't help the rising frustration that colored my words. "That's the best you can do? Do you even see how he wants to destroy us?" "Destroy you?" The last word came out hushed, cracking like fresh ice under the weight of my emotions. James took a step back, shaking his head as if trying to clear some haunting presence. "He doesn't know everything, and he's trying to pull you away from me." A heart-wrenching silence descended, every second feeling like an eternity. "But what if he does? What if there's something more, something that you've let him into?" "A lot of things have been said tonight," he replied, desperation tinging his voice. "But you have to believe me when I say I care about you more than help me understand." I interrupted, my voice rising, spinning out of control like a cyclone of emotions battling within me. I was afraid, but more so, I felt a tremor of hope in the idea that understanding could be the bridge that brought us close again. Just then, the waiter returned, his presence cutting through the tension. I didn't mean to interrupt. "Is everything all right?" James shot me a fleeting glance, the tension in his shoulders barely softening. "We're fine, thank you," he said through gritted teeth. The waiter nodded, but I could see the concern stitched into the corners of his frown, an odd reminder that we weren't alone in our turmoil. As he walked away, I had to swallow my resentment, reminded that the world around us continued to spin even as ours wavered perilously. "Did I have to go?" James finally said, his eyes darting to the exit. "To go?" My heart dropped as the word echoed with disappointment. "You're leaving again?" "I have to deal with Andrew," he stated, determination pooling in his depths. "He's a liability, and I can't let him endanger you. I know you're trying to protect me, but it's not working," I exclaimed, frustration pouring out like salt on an open wound. "I'd rather handle this alone than put you in danger," he replied, every syllable sounding heavy with decision. As he turned to leave, something in my chest broke. It was as if an unseen force yanked on my heartstrings. leaving a gaping emptiness. "James, please." I called after him, feeling tears press against my eyes. The flicker of his stature paused, but only for a heartbeat before he set his jaw and walked away, leaving me clenching the remnants of hope slipping through my fingers that I leaned against the table, my heart racing as panic crested within me, sending waves of cold dread crashing through my veins. The laughter continued behind me, bright and jovial, all too bitter against the turmoil that lay before me. As my mind raced to catch the threads of where our lives were heading, I felt a sudden weight in my pocket, drawing my attention back to reality. I fished James' phone out, realizing in horror that in my distress, I had forgotten it, leaving it vulnerable with the very man who wished to unravel our lives. I opened the screen. A new text illuminated the device, its content forever altering the course of our fate. Through trembling hands, I read the message. "I know what's going on with you and her. This isn't just a game. If you don't end things soon, they'll make sure everyone knows." The fear clawed at my insides as a deep sense of betrayal began to unfurl within me. Just as an insidious realization dawned, James' world was darker than I could have ever anticipated, and I was now entangled in a web of deceit that threatened to drag us both under. With trembling fingers, I set James' phone on the table, the words pulsing in my mind like an angry heartbeat. Andrew's threat hung over me, a storm cloud blotting out any shred of comfort I might have found in my confusion. "If you don't end things soon." The implication was clear, and the very notion ignited a chilling fire in my veins that I drew in a shaky breath, feeling the world around me swell and fade, as if I were teetering on the edge of a precipice. Just moments ago, I thought I had been gathering strength to confront the man I loved, only to discover I was wrestling with unseen forces that threatened to dismantle whatever fragile bond we had left. Guilt spiraled through me. Just when I needed to uphold our trust, darkness threatened to obliterate it. Footsteps echoed softly as I rose from the table, navigating through the dense crowd that felt like a sea of avatars lost in their own lives. I felt out of place, untouched by the laughter and clinking glasses. Every passing gaze felt heavy with scrutiny, and I was reminded of how utterly vulnerable I had become. The noise faded as I slipped outside, the cool night air hitting me like a cleansing wave. It granted me a moment of clarity, yet the sky above felt suffocating, a vast expanse where my hopes twinkled faintly, dwarfed by the encroaching shadows of fear. I couldn't just stand here. I had to confront this. My phone vibrated, and I hesitated before looking down at the screen. It was a message from James. "I'm sorry. He'll be back soon." My heart fluttered in desperation. Did he really understand the peril I had just uncovered? My fingers hesitated over the keyboard, and then I typed, "Andrew knows. He's threatening us. We need to talk." The cursor blinked back at me as I added, "Please be safe." Every moment stretched into infinity as I awaited a response, but with each passing second, the dread pooled deeper in my stomach. How could I help him if he was still in the dark about Andrew's motives? I could feel the walls closing in, every secret shared between us plunging me deeper into a chasm of uncertainty. Finally, my phone buzzed to life again, yet there were no comforting words from James. Instead, a message from an unknown number flashed across the screen. "Sorry you had to find out this way. He'll give you a call soon." My breath hitched, and fear coursed through me. I had expected hostility or even a direct threat from Andrew, but this felt different, like a haunting echo of a fate I couldn't yet understand. Were there others involved? Was I just a pawn in a game I couldn't see? My heart raced as I felt a prickling awareness, as if someone was watching me from the shadows. I turned abruptly, but the street was seemingly empty. The restaurant behind me held warmth and life, but I felt an unsettling chill creeping into my bones, reminding me I was utterly alone in this precarious mess. I debated whether to return inside. The sound of a familiar laugh drifted towards me that sent shards of memory slicing through the tumult of my heart. Sarah, my closest friend, the one who had always stood by me, emerged from the restaurant, her sparkling eyes catching the distant glow of streetlights. The instant she spotted me, her expression shifted from shared laughter to concern. She hurried over, the heels of her shoes echoing against the pavement. "What happened?" "I was just inside. Where's James?" I glanced back at the entrance, feeling an inner tug pulling me toward the safety of her friendship. even as uncertainty twisted through my thoughts. He's dealing with some business, I managed, the weight of the truth too heavy on my tongue. Business? Is everything okay? You seem, I don't know, scared. Her voice held a tenderness that broke through my emotional defenses, and I took a steadying breath, wishing I could offer her an explanation that didn't unravel my entire world. Not really, I confessed quietly, averting my gaze to the ground. Andrew isn't going to let this go. He knows too much, and he's threatening to expose us. I can't let him ruin everything. I need James to be safe. Sarah reached out, taking my hand in hers. The warmth of her grip provided a momentary sense of reassurance amidst the chaos swirling around us. We'll find a way through this. You're not alone. Have you thought about going to the police? Torn between fear and the desperate desire for safety, I shook my head. That will just draw more attention, escalate everything. If James is involved, I don't even know how far this goes. As her brow furrowed in contemplation, a flash of movement caught my eye down the alley. A figure lingered just out of reach, leaning against a lamppost. I couldn't make out the features, but the sight of someone in the shadows only stoked the flames of my apprehension that I think someone's watching us. I whispered, nudging Sarah's attention toward the figure. She instinctively pulled closer, her voice steady despite my mounting anxiety. Do you want me to call for help? But as soon as the words left her lips, the figure stepped into the light, and a chill slithered up my spine as recognition dawned on me. It was Ryan, a mutual acquaintance, and the unmistakable gleam in his eyes suggested he wasn't there by coincidence. Hey there, he said lightly, but the tension in the air crackled like electricity. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I think you and I need to have a conversation. Fear gripped my heart, constricting it painfully. The truths that curled in my chest felt more dangerous now than ever, and I faced a new reality where loyalty was at stake. I wished I could return to moments before everything spiraled out of control, before love and trust were overshadowed by treachery and deception. As I stood there, frozen between the weight of the implications and the uncertainty looming ahead, everything threatened to collapse with a single misstep. And in that moment, the unknown felt more daunting than any revelation I had yet encountered. The oppressive silence lingered as Ryan's presence encroached upon the fragile bubble of safety Sarah and I had attempted to create. I fought to maintain my composure, but the undercurrent of fear gnawed at my insides. My heart raced, each beat echoing louder than the last. Ryan, what do you mean? I asked, my voice catching slightly. He took a step closer, his casual demeanor clashing harshly with the tension in the air. Let's not play games. You've been poking around some dangerous places, and Andrew isn't the only one who knows more than he should. My thoughts raced. Did he know about my conversations with James? Had I somehow drawn him into this tangled web of deception? I don't understand, I replied, my gaze darting around as if looking for some escape. Look, I don't want trouble, he said, the amusement fading from his voice. But you need to be careful. You don't know what you're up against. Before I could respond, Sarah stepped protectively in front of me. And you think threatening her is the answer? Just back off, Ryan, she shot back, her fierce loyalty reassuring yet infuriatingly misplaced in this moment. A flicker of annoyance flashed across Ryan's face before it smoothed into an unreadable expression. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm giving you a warning. Andrew is dangerous, and you're playing with fire by standing too close to him. Tell me something I don't know, I muttered, frustration spilling over. As if this could get any worse. You might want to reconsider how deep into this you get involved, he replied. There are bigger players than you realize. I could feel the weight of his words pressing down on me, heavy and foreboding. Why do you care? I spat, desperation clawing at my throat. What do you get out of helping me? I'm not helping you, he replied, leaning slightly against the lamppost. I'm simply trying to make sure the sparks from your fire don't start a wildfire that takes out everyone involved. At that moment, a phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me from our exchange. I fumbled to answer it, praying it was James. Hello? I answered breathlessly. It's me. His voice was like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. My chest tightened with relief. I just got your message. I'm on my way back. James, please be careful, I urged, anxiety threading through my words. Andrew knows. I know. I'm doing everything I can, but you have to stay put. Don't meet him. Don't. But before he could finish, there was a sudden crackling noise on the line, followed by an abrupt silence. My heart dropped. James, are you there? James. Panic surged through me as I pulled the phone away from my ear, staring at the screen. Call failed. I cursed under my breath, fighting against the tide of dread rising within me. Is everything okay? Sarah asked, glancing up at me with concern etched across her features. James was just on the line, but I threw a frantic look towards Ryan. I can't just sit here. I need to find him. That's not a good idea, Ryan interrupted. You have no idea what you're walking into. I don't care. I snapped, a surge of anger fueling my resolve. I can't stand by and wait for whatever is happening to him to unfold. Not again. Do you even know where he is? Ryan pressed, his eyes narrowing. What if you put yourself in harm's way by charging in without any plan? The truth weighed heavily on my mind. Where could James possibly be? Suddenly, everything felt like a jigsaw puzzle missing pieces. Andrew was standing in the shadows, pulling strings I couldn't see, and James was deep within enemy territory. I have to go. I can't let Andrew have control over our lives any longer. My voice trembled, each word punctuated by fear and determination. Then let me help you. Ryan's eyes flickered with something unexpected. Was it sincerity? I have information. I never thought I'd willingly aid you, but this isn't a game for you anymore. Every instinct told me to refuse, to turn away from this unpredictable ally. But even as I wrestled with my gut feeling, I realized I was at a crossroads. The emotions swirling within me, fear, desperation, an urgent need to protect the man I loved, all coalesced into one undeniable truth. I needed to act. Before I could make up my mind, the clatter of footsteps echoed, jolting me into attention. A group of figures emerged from the shadows, and something inside me coiled tightly, instinctively sensing trouble. Speak of the devil, Ryan muttered, his face paling as he took a cautious step back. Looks like I'm not the only one who wants to have a word with you. I turned slowly to see Andrew's menacing silhouette at the forefront. Panic surged through me, and my heart dropped as I caught a glimpse of the cold, hard glint of something metallic in one of their hands. With my pulse roaring in my ears, the world around me shattered into chaos. I felt the weight of countless consequences crashing down upon me, and in that moment, I understood that choices always held consequences, and betrayal cut deeper than love ever could. The atmosphere shifted abruptly, thickening with a palpable tension as Andrew's men converged around us. My mind raced, frantically searching for an escape route or a way to shield Sarah from whatever danger loomed ahead. Ryan, a reluctant ally one moment, seemed to falter, the resolve in his gaze wavering. Stay behind me, he urged, subtly positioning himself as a barrier between us and Andrew's looming figure, who stepped forward with an unsettling smirk dancing on his lips. Well, isn't this a surprise? Andrew's voice dripped with condescension. I didn't think I would see you again so soon. Playing with fire, are we? His eyes flickered towards Sarah, assessing, calculating. Get away from us, Andrew. I shot back, forcing bravado into my trembling voice. Memories of his previous threats haunted me, echoing in my mind like a haunting melody I couldn't shake off. Let's not escalate things unnecessarily, he said, spreading his hands as if inviting us to play a game we didn't want to join. We can talk this out, can't we? After all, it would be a pity to ruin a beautiful evening. You're a monster, I spat, bitterness rising like bile in my throat. Every instinct warned me to run, but my feet felt sewn to the ground, paralyzed by fear and anger. And yet the monster has what you want, he retorted, a gleam of satisfaction in his eyes. You know where this leads, don't you? I have James. I have what you value most. Fury boiled within me, mixing dangerously with despair. What have you done to him? I demanded, the tremor in my voice betraying how deeply his words struck. Nothing he didn't deserve, Andrew replied, leaning in closer. You really should have stayed out of this, Melissa. It's not just about you anymore. I fought against the urge to crumble under the weight of his threat. I needed to stay strong for James, for Sarah. The fire within me ignited, brightening the shadows of my fears. You think you can intimidate me? You're wrong. Ryan's shoulder brushed against mine, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone. In the swirl of dread, I found fleeting strength from our shared terror. Andrew glanced at his men, who stood idly by, their expressions devoid of compassion. Maybe it's time you understand the depth of this situation, Melissa. Your little crusade has consequences, and your naivete could very well cost you everything that you know. I countered fiercely, shaking off the sense of hopelessness clawing at my insides. It's not naivete. It's courage. You can't keep using fear like a weapon forever. For a moment, uncertainty flickered behind Andrew's cold facade, and I dared to hope that perhaps he underestimated me. But the moment faded as he returned to his usual mocking demeanor, leaning back slightly. Courage can also lead to recklessness. Do you really want to find out more about what you're up against? Ryan interrupted, stepping forward protectively. Whatever games you're playing, it doesn't matter. Hand over James, and you'll have nothing else from us. The room was charged with a tense silence. Andrew did not move, his eyes flicking between Ryan and myself, mirroring the disdain and amusement he had always shown. You think this changes anything? I have already made arrangements. The city will rally behind me. They'll adore the paradigm shift I bring. What do you mean? Panic coiled in my chest like a serpent, weaving through my thoughts. Let's just say I have big plans, and those plans don't involve your precious James, he replied cryptically. But you'll find out soon enough when the time is right. That's not an answer, I shouted, grasping to keep the fragments of my composure. What do you want from us? In time, my dear, he taunted, waving a dismissive hand. Just know that I owe you a debt of gratitude. You've been rather entertaining, and nothing gets the crowd buzzing like a little drama. Before I could muster a response, he signaled to his men, who edged closer. Desperation surged through Muir. They here to take us, to further entangle us in his schemes? My gut churned with fear and uncertainty. Just then, a small figure darted in from the side. My heart jolted as I recognized her Emma, our elderly neighbor who had always shared a kind word or a smile. She rushed toward us, her frail arms raised in defiance. Stop. You leave them alone, she shouted, her voice ringing out like a bell, piercing through the coagulated tension. Andrew's expression morphed from amusement to disbelief, anger darkening his features. What are you doing, old woman? This doesn't involve you. But it does, she replied defiantly, stepping closer, bravery etched into her fragile features. These two have heart, and they fight for what is right. You are nothing but a coward hiding behind your power and money. Her unexpected courage was like a bolt of lightning cutting through the chaos, momentarily stalling Andrew's men. It was a small act of bravery, but it reminded me that hope lived even in the darkest corners. Get her out of here, Andrew roared, anger refracting into a wicked glare. Do what you want, Emma declared, her voice steady. But know that you will never win against what they stand for. You'll never take their spirit. In that pivotal moment, surrounded by uncertainty and fear, a realization washed over me. I couldn't let them drown my world. I couldn't allow Andrew to extinguish the light that flickered so fiercely inside each of us. Run, I shouted to Sarah, pulling her backward instinctively. We have to go, now. As we turned, I caught a glimpse of Ryan's face, bewilderment layering over his determination. It was a fleeting window of understanding this was our fight, and we could not abandon it. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the world spiraled outward, shadows creeping in as we darted into the night. Uncertainty flooded my mind, adrenaline pumping through my veins. And just as we turned the corner, a chaotic roar of shouting faded behind us, something colossal crashing against a wall, followed by an agonizing silence that lingered in the air. A chilling realization gripped my heart. I had no idea what we were running toward or what we had left behind. Yet, even in that moment, as the darkness closed in, I could feel the flicker of hope igniting, daring me to believe that we were about to embark on a journey far deeper than we had ever anticipated. The muffled sounds of chaos began to fade as Sarah and I stumbled into the neon-tinged streets, the air cool against my flushed skin. My heart thudded erratically, each beat a deafening reminder of the danger still lurking behind us. The weight of Andrew's threats clung to me like an unwelcome shroud, and uncertainty gripped me tighter than any physical hand ever could. Melissa, wait. Sarah's breathless voice cut through my murmurings of fear. I turned to see her face pale, but determination flickered in her eyes. Where do we go now? I looked around, the city pulsating with life around us despite the heavy fog of dread surrounding our escape. We need to find a safe place. Somewhere we can figure this out. But even as I spoke, my mind raced with the enormity of what we were up against. Andrew had begun his game. The stakes were higher than I could have imagined, and I felt an impending sense of doom brewing just beyond the horizon. Before we could gather our thoughts, a figure materialized from the shadows, tall and imposing. My instincts kicked in, preparing for flight or fight, but when my eyes landed on the familiar silhouette, they widened in shock. It was Ryan, urgency etched in the lines of his face. "That I was worried you'd left without me," he said, scanning our surroundings like a hawk seeking prey. His tone was lighter than it should have been, but his eyes betrayed a deeper urgency that quickened my pulse. "Why were you?" I started, confusion mingling with relief. "Let's talk later. Right now, we need to move." He gestured for us to follow him into a narrow alley, away from the main street's raucous energy. Andrew's men won't take long to regroup. That we hurried into the shadows, heartbeats synchronized like a frantic anthem of survival. Sarah fell in beside me, and despite the tremors in her voice, she asked, "What about James?" Ryan clenched his jaw, gaze locked onto the bricks before us. "We'll find him, I promise." His fiery determination ignited something within me, a spark of belief that wavered against the consuming darkness. "Promise?" I pressed, wrapping my arms around myself as if shielding my heart from the inevitable confrontation that awaited us. "Yeah, not just a promise, but a vow." His words were steady, imbued with conviction. As we emerged from the alley, the world outside felt foreign. The city hummed with oblivious life music blaring from nearby clubs, laughter spilling onto the streets while we grappled with our own unseen battles. It was disorienting, the juxtaposition of our turmoil against the backdrop of normalcy that continued to thrive. We continued our march into uncertainty, taking ferocious gulps of the cold night air. A part of me longed for normalcy, to dance carefree among friends, laugh at terrible jokes, and share secrets under dim lights. But that was stolen from me, replaced by this insidious war Andrew had initiated. But then, amidst my spiraling thoughts, Sarah's voice broke through like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "You know, sometimes I think he underestimates us." "What do you mean?" I replied, swept along by her resilient spirit. "Look at us. We've already faced him, even when we were terrified. If we can do that, we can keep going. It won't be easy, but we have to keep pushing back." Hope blossomed within me, tiny but potent. We could forge our path forward despite the heavy shroud of fear casting shadows over our decisions. I nodded, determined to stand alongside her, buoyed by the fragile sense of camaraderie emerging from our shared struggle. Just then, a deafening crash echoed behind us, shattering our moment of resolve. We turned, hearts leaping to our throats, only to see a cluster of Andrew's men barreling toward us, eyes glinting with purpose. Panic surged as they flooded the street like locusts, seeking their prey. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline surging again this time. Propelled by the primal urge to survive, that we took off, feet pounding against the pavement, a blur of panic and rage urging us onward. The city lights blurred, swirling around us like a kaleidoscope of chaos. And yet, as fear threatened to swallow me whole, I felt another flicker of resistance smoldering deep inside. We ducked into another alley, only to find a dead end facing us as the adrenaline-fueled shouts of our pursuers grew stronger. My heart thundered as I spun around blindly, desperate for an exit. "Over here." Ryan tugged at my sleeve, and I followed instinctively, squeezing past a rusted dumpster. As we scuttled into a small alcove, Sarah slid down against the wall, panting heavily as her eyes flitted between us. "What now?" she gasped, fear evident in her eyes as we huddled together, breathless and vulnerable. "Maybe if we just stay quiet, they'll pass by," Ryan suggested, casting a glance over his shoulder, but the desperation pooling in his voice contradicted his hope. The world stood still, the tension thickening unervingly in the close quarters of our hiding space. With every heartbeat, I felt time stretching, the anticipation of chaos unfurling into a string of possibilities, none of them reassuring. And then, amidst the oppressive silence that wrapped around us, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text, glowing like a beacon in the dark uncertainty. My heart raced as I pulled it out, the screen illuminating Ryan's bewildered expression and Sarah's wide eyes. The IT was from an unknown number, But the message was clear. I know where James is. Come alone, or you'll never see him again. The weight of that moment pressed down on my chest, crushing hope beneath its enormity. I glanced at Ryan and Sarah, both filled with questions, their faces a combination of horror and disbelief. I had made a promise to James, a vow to protect him, yet now I faced an insidious choice. Head straight into the lion's den or risk losing everything, Melissa? Ryan's voice was a frantic whisper, pulling me from the whirlpool of dread. What are we going to do? And as the echoes of Andrew's men grew closer, the gravity of my decision loomed like a storm on the horizon. I realized that hope often came intertwined with pain, and now, the hardest choice lay before me. Did I dare step into the abyss, setting myself on a collision course with the monster who had already taken so much from me? The outer world dimmed, every breath laden with uncertainty as I looked down at the screen, fingers trembling against the light. I drew in a shaky breath, knowing that the path forward wove a tapestry of danger and undeniable resolve. I had to decide, and time was running out. Night fell heavy, draping itself like a shroud over the city's glowing heart. As I stared at my phone, that insidious message seemed to pulse in my hands, demanding action while underscoring my fears. I know where James is. Come alone. My mind raced, but deep within, I felt a cold certainty settle like lead in my chest. The truth was that I could no longer shy away from confrontation. The chaos of Andrew's world had seeped into my own, threatening to consume everything I treasured. Did I have to go? My voice sliced through the thick air, heavy with unspoken dread. Ryan shot me a look, half shocked, half reproachful. You can't. That's exactly what Andrew wants, he urged. But as Sarah clutched my arm, I saw the worry etched across her face, mirroring the internal turmoil bubbling beneath my surface. What if he's lying? She whispered. What if it's a trap? No, I said resolutely, shaking off the shivers of doubt that slithered through my spine. What if it's not? What if James? My throat tightened at the thought. What if he's in danger? A moment of silence passed, punctuated by the echo of footsteps drawing closer through the night. The urgency coiled around me like a snake, squeezing my resolve. They were coming, and I had to act before the very ground beneath us collapsed. That I can't lose him, I whispered fiercely, every emotion raw and aching. I won't let Andrew take him from me. Ryan took a breath, his expression shifting from concern to realization. The fierce determination that had sparked in Sarah's eyes now ignited in his as well. If you're going, we're going together, he declared decisively, and I felt a surge of gratitude mixing with anxiety. But we need to be smart. I nodded, grateful for their unwavering support. We can't let Andrew think we're weak. He thrived on fear. Maybe I can use it against him. As we slipped deeper into our plan, I felt a little stronger, like a shield had fortified my heart against the darkness looming just ahead. We quickly charted a path, knowing that everything revolved around timing. Andrew would expect me to come alone, but I needed backup. I couldn't betray the trust within my friends, nor risk everything without a fight. After huddling in the shadows, waiting for the sentinels of Andrew to dissipate, we crept from our hideout, urgency fueling our steps as we moved through the twisting alleys. The pulse of danger quickened beneath the surface of the city night. Every whisper of wind felt like a warning. Finally, we reached the designated spot, narrow lane framed by jagged buildings that loomed like watchful giants against the shimmering night. My heart thrummed in my chest, uncertainty dancing with the iron resolve coursing through my veins. This was my moment to confront the chaos that had taken root in my life. As we approached, my mind filled with the echoes of those final conversations. Andrew's cruel words, my moments with James. I yearned for clarity amidst the confusion. In that instant, the resilience I felt manifested itself as an anchor reminding me why I was here. I had to fight for love. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared from the shadows. James. Panic surged within me as I took in the sight of him, his form tense and coiled as if ready to jump at any moment. There was something darker there, too, a heaviness that burdened the air between us. Melissa, he breathed out, eyes blazing like a fire amidst the shadows. What are you doing here? You shouldn't have come alone. I wasn't going to leave you, I shouted in response, my voice caught between fury and relief. Andrew, he's here. The weight of those words hung ominously, breaking the silence like glass shattering against the floor. James stiffened as the realization washed over him. "What do you mean?" he asked, glancing warily around us. "You shouldn't be here." "It's dangerous." That I stepped closer, anchoring my hands against his arms, needing him to know I was here, grounded, resolute. "I got a text that said he has you." I didn't want to let go, not of him, nor of the truth. "He's been threatening us, but I wouldn't let him take you without a fight." The look in his eyes softened, an admission flaring to life. "You put yourself at risk for me?" Each word brushed against my heart, igniting the embers of love that had been deferred by shadows. But the moment flickered as another voice broke through. From behind a nearby wall, Andrew emerged, a devilish glint in his eyes. "Ah, so the gang's all here." He laughed, the sound a chilling melody. "What a delightful turn of events." "Get away from us," I shouted, stepping forward protectively as Sarah and Ryan flanked us, the strength of our unity bolstering my resolve. "Such bravado," Andrew mocked, stepping closer. "But let's not forget the stakes. Actions have consequences." "Enough games," James replied, his voice low yet steady. "If you want to speak, then let's speak plainly. What do you want?" Andrew's gaze flared with amusement, as if he was reveling in the chaos had orchestrated. "Conveniently, that's what I came here to settle." "You have something I want, James." James straightened, his posture mirroring defiance despite the unease radiating from him. "I'll never give in to your demands, Andrew." I felt James' turmoil mirrored in my own heart. The shadows were darker than I had ever imagined, secrets festering in every nook and cranny of each word spoken. Love and fear danced perilously close, threatening to unravel the fragile connections we had woven through trials and terror. Andrew's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Then the two of you will be the perfect distraction while I execute my plans." I sensed James' tension coiling tightly, and with a sudden rush, he moved to shield me. "No." The word burst forth, filled with a defiance that took me by surprise. "If you want me, you'll have to get through them first." The loyalty in his voice swirled around us, enveloping us in warmth amidst the encroaching shadows. Time stilled then, a tense pause pressing in as Andrew's laughter erupted, biting and cruel. "How poetic, but foolish. Do you think your bond means anything to me? The world is a game, and you're all pieces I'll use however I please." At his words, something shifted within me, an awakening of clarity, as if I could see past his facade. Andrew's existence was tethered to a power that thrived on fear and devastation. The moment stretched, and with it came a surge of bravery, fear mingling with determination, shaping the truth of what I must do in that very moment. "You're wrong," I told him, the confidence thrumming in my veins as I clutched James' hand. "Love and courage will always trump greed. You can't control the very thing that nurtures us. Our bond will shatter your game." Andrew's eyes narrowed, surprise edging into his features for just a heartbeat before slipping back into vacuous hatred. "Such a naive view. You will regret this, Melissa. You'll understand soon enough what I can do." In that moment, as we held on to our strength against the raging storm, I recognized the pulse of unity enveloping us. Love would indeed be our strongest ally. A chain unbroken, we stood as one against betrayal and greed. James' grip tightened around mine, and for the first time, I could feel that our connection transcended the chaos surrounding us. A flicker of determination lit his eyes, a resonance of insistent hope flaring alive. Then the moment seemed suspended, pregnant with potential. "You're not leaving," James said, his voice steady. "Not without consequences." But before any words could detangle the silence around us, Andrew unleashed a furious roar, his men closing in from the sides, their intentions as dark as the night itself. In a heartbeat, the atmosphere shifted, every fiber of my being urging me to ground myself, to fight back. And in the face of danger, our resolve surged, an unwavering reminder that love could triumph even in the depths of despair. As we prepared to face the tempest, clarity wove through the chaos like a golden thread. Together, we would forge our fate. With the strength of 1,000 hearts behind us, I felt empowered. I would not run. I would not hide. I would stand for what mattered, not just for my love, but for the very essence of hope itself. With the ground shifting beneath us, I turned to James, a whisper laced with conviction. "We'll face him together." "Always," he replied, his voice a steady anchor against the storm. And just as we held tight against the tide, the shadows receded, revealing the dawn unfurling ahead, the iridescence of a new beginning, a reminder that love is never in vain, and that courage blooms brightest amidst the fiercest darkness. I took a step forward, hand clasped with James, Sarah lining up beside us, and Ryan ready for whatever lay ahead. I felt an undeniable truth thrum within. Met his was the moment we would reclaim our lives and carve hope from the shadows. And I knew, as the faint rays of light began to break over the horizon, that together we could rise as we always had, unbroken, unyielding, and fiercely alive. In that unyielding moment, we would not just be players in a game. We would become the architects of our own destiny, breaking free from the chains that had bound us and choosing to write our own story, free from fear and betrayal. One final rush of resolve surged through me, unleashed in a whisper, thrumming between our united hearts as we faced what was to come. Let's end this together. The power surged through us, and as we took a step forward, we became a force unstoppable, three against the tides, rising toward the dawn, fierce and free.